Hey everybody, before I start the video, I just want to say how emotional I am to have reached 100 subscribers. To know that you guys enjoyed and watched my last video means the absolute world to me. All I want to do is make who's ever watching day a little bit better just by connecting on the things we love. And to celebrate this milestone of hopefully many, I want to show how grateful I am to you guys by giving away a physical copy of Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 releases on October 20th, and in order to participate you just have to be subscribed to the channel, where then a subscriber will randomly be selected and announced next Friday on my newest video as the winner. Once again, I seriously cannot thank you guys enough for everything, so let's move on. Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox. Those three companies provided us with timeless classics and memories of pure joy. PlayStation for the last decade seems to have taken the reins in not just console sales, but in exclusive AAA titles as well. However, it wasn't easy for PlayStation to get here. They had to deal with another established Japanese video game company, and Nintendo, that became a powerhouse due to IPs like Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon under its umbrella. And while two video game companies battled it out in Japan, one American company rose to prominence in the early 2000s as Halo and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic helped cement Xbox as a fresh alternative to gamers. Nonetheless, here we are decades later, and the landscape of gaming has changed substantially. Xbox is hoping to regain momentum it's lost the last few years, with hope that one of its newest AAA titles, Starfield, can be the poster child and bring them back to popularity. Nintendo has been hit or miss, with recent Pokemon releases having been lackluster, while also experiencing critical success with games like Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Now, let's go over how PlayStation changed the game industry with how you tell a story.
3, 2, 1. Happy New Year, everybody! Happy 2005!
2005. A year forever etched into my memory bank. Kanye West dropped his sophomore album, Late Registration, which took the airways by storm due to Gold Digger causing mayhem in the streets between single fathers and baby mamas. It's also the year the greatest Star Wars movie of all time released in theaters. Yeah, I said it. Revenge of the Sith made me fall in love with Star Wars faster than I fell in love with Natalie Portman as Princess Padme. Outside of that though, it was just as big as a year in the gaming industry as well. With graphics steadily reaching the same quality as the stories being told in video games, 2005 brought us masterpieces like Resident Evil 4, which to this day is so influential in the horror genre. And who can forget about the multi-platform success Splinter Cell Chaos Theory had. It was a year full of trailblazers, and that's where everybody's favorite broken protagonist comes into the mix.
By the gods, what have I become?
Although released on March 22nd, 2005, God of War became the poster child for Sony after the company's video game department, Sony Computer Entertainment, or for short SCE, merged all of its Sony-owned studios into one juggernaut given the name SCE Worldwide Studios on September 14, 2005, which was then rebranded in May of 2020 to what we know today as PlayStation Studios. As all these changes had been going on at Sony, one studio was able to hit the ground running to eventually become synonymous with the name PlayStation. Originally founded in 1999, Santa Monica Studios had only created one game before the year 2005, a racing game by the name Connecticut that released in 2001. The release of the game was important to the studio heads at Santa Monica because they wanted to prove to Sony that the studio could put out a game on schedule and within Sony's budget, which Santa Monica was able to accomplish, by the way. Establishing themselves with Sony helped shift the studio's focus on their new AAA title, God of War. Now, let's be honest here. Kratos in the God of War franchise as a whole doesn't need much more of an introduction. We're talking about a character that really expanded on what you can do with a protagonist in their entirety. He came across as callous at times, but when his vulnerability is exposed, it helped us as gamers connect to him because those moments of being vulnerable are so rare that when we got them, it felt like they carried more weight. From the outside looking in, the concept of Kratos was extremely risky when dealing with such a large budget for a AAA title that had us playing as a character that accidentally offed his family but still had time to take care of his personal needs, if you know what I mean.
The gods have truly blessed you, Kratos.
But it was something different, and we enjoyed it. For every Kratos, there's hundreds of your cookie cutter Master Chiefs and AAA franchises.
You have to consider it done.
And that's what made God of War so iconic as well. Not to even mention the gameplay for God of War couldn't have been more flawless for its time. Although having its fair of hack and slash moments, the quick time events couldn't have complemented this game any better. This led to the game receiving critical praise from respected gaming media outlets like Metacritic, giving it a 94 out of 100, and the ranking by IGN as the 7th best PlayStation 2 game of all time. The success from the release of God of War led to Santa Monica Studio realizing they just found the next hit AAA franchise in the gaming world. With the franchise now having over 8 console games released spanning over the course of 18 years, it's safe to say God of War has become the face of PlayStation. I mean, look at the numbers, they speak for themselves. Since its first game released in 2005, the franchise has sold over a whopping 65 million copies throughout the years its games have come out, along with winning multiple Game of the Year awards to further solidify its place in the industry. The results from God of War, however, also helped pave the way for PlayStation to realize they had the potential to create AAA powerhouses in their own backyard, and Naughty Dog would be the ones to cement that sentiment. 2 years after the release of God of War, PlayStation would strike gold once again thanks to the help of a studio they acquired in 2001. Naughty Dog already had an established relationship with PlayStation from years ago, as they had been the studio that created one of PlayStation's hit original games in Crash Bandicoot. Naughty Dog and PlayStation would end up giving us a AAA title so infamous it would later have its own franchise like God of War as well, but this time with a little bit of Indiana Jones sprinkled in.
You just pick it up already.
Uncharted had its first game release on November 19, 2007, with the premise of the game following everyday adventure and explorer Nathan Drake on the search for the lost treasure of El Dorado with his right-hand man Sully and his future wife Elena Fisher. Now let me just say, for me, Uncharted was such a fun game to play because of how easy it was to fall into the lore of the game I was playing. While God of War did a great job in creating a world full of gods and mythical creatures, Uncharted was able to provide that same charm with its attention to detail in its puzzles, in-game environment, and most importantly, the effort put into creating the backstory of what you were searching for. These tools helped us love Nathan Drake as a character even more. He was a character that the designers at Naughty Dog wanted to make relatable in many ways, such as his reactions when in danger and purposefully giving him the attire from an Old Navy commercial to make us feel like it was us going through those jungles. Naughty Dog's ability to make us as players become immersed into the world they were creating right in front of us turned Uncharted to one of the most well-known AAA franchises to this very day. It's a staple not just for the PlayStation community, but for any gamer. And this is what I meant by PlayStation striking gold twice. Over 41 million total copies sold over the course of 4 console games in the span of 9 years, with the icing on the cake being that the Uncharted franchise has won IGN Game of the Year in 2007 for Drake's Fortune, BAFTA Awards Action Game of the Year in 2009 for Among Thieves, and Game Critics Awards Best Console Game in 2015 for A Thief's End. The smash hit that the Uncharted franchise became even led to Sony investing in a movie. That, unlike its gaming counterpart, wasn't as much of a hit.
It is so bad, I want to give you a 0, but that's not possible. So I give you a 1.
Either way, after Uncharted helped give Naughty Dog its amazing reputation, it left them salivating for more, and the next game they came out with only further solidified Naughty Dog's name by giving us an all-time classic in The Last of Us. Naughty Dog and PlayStation decided it was time to push the envelope with what a video game is supposed to be. In 2009, for the first time in company history, Naughty Dog split into 2 teams. One team would go on to work on Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception, and the other would begin developing The Last of Us. Released on June 14, 2013, The Last of Us had gamers go through a gut-wrenching journey that felt at times as if you were watching a movie instead of playing a game. It was such a cinematic experience playing through that game that it became a question of not if, but when will The Last of Us have a show or a movie. Here we are now in 2023, with The Last of Us now having its own Emmy-nominated hit show with HBO that reminded us of why the game was so iconic amongst game critics and players. The Last of Us had a sense of tragic reality to it, and that's why we resonated with that game so much. The loneliness in characters like Ellie and Joel created a dynamic between the two that gave us a sense of urgency to make sure they came out towards the end of that game unscathed. Naughty Dog's attention to detail to things such as the score composed for this game and the symbolism in moments like Ellie's infamous encounter with the herded giraffes, with the giraffes representing the innocence in a character like Ellie, who although is a complete survivor is still a child, as well as representing the will to continue living for a better tomorrow, to live a life that was once lived before the outbreak. Details like that caused The Last of Us to become a building block for PlayStation in the 2010s. These are some Kobe Bryant level numbers right here. Over 37 million copies sold since its first game release, as well as DICE Awards Game of the Year in 2014 and Game Awards Game of the Year in 2020 for The Last of Us 2. The Last of Us franchise became a pillar for what PlayStation is today, while also paving the way for the new kids on the block, Insomniac Games' Spider-Man and Sucker Punch Productions' Ghost of Tsushima. Now, what's different about the two studios that PlayStation would choose for two of its most recent notable games is that while Naughty Dog and Santa Monica Studio are well known today, they weren't quite established when they first made their flagship games for PlayStation. On the other hand, Insomniac gave us some of PlayStation's earliest acclaimed AAA franchises in Spyro and Ratchet & Clank, while Sucker Punch also brought us Sly Cooper and the infamous series as well. What's insane is that these two developers went from making games like Spyro and Sly Cooper, which, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy, but if you would have told me the guys that made this would end up making one of the greatest superhero games of all time, I'd laugh at you the same way my wallet does every time I open it. Putting a city like New York into an open world video game and finding a way to make it as lively as the real thing was only a sample of what this game got right. The world building in this game was as stellar as its mechanics that, although feels similar to that of the critically acclaimed Arkham series, the one thing that series failed to do was give us much insight into the world of Bruce Wayne. And I think Insomniac did a beautiful part in giving us that look into not just Spider-Man's world, but Peter Parker's as well. The reason why we love superheroes is not just for their powers or how dope their suits look, but it's because of the person behind the mask, and that's why I think we enjoyed this game so much. Playing Spider-Man, we saw a little of ourselves in Peter Parker, who struggles with the responsibilities of everyday life, while also feeling like that little kid again running around the living room pretending you were a superhero. Now, where Insomniac Spider-Man had used its own formula to creating a story, Ghost of Tsushima did something similar as well. Sucker Punch took the time to honor the decorated history of samurais during the Kamakura period in Japan. So this game felt like we were playing a historic piece as we were thrown into the world of the game's protagonist Jin Sakai and what the people of Tsushima had to endure during the Mongol invasion. In a world full of samurai, this game offered so much, especially when it comes to its combat options and how you fight with a sword, the island's vivid environment, and the intensity in showdowns heavily inspired by the beautiful work of Akira Kurosawa's Sanjuro and Seven Samurai. These two games, Ghost of Tsushima and Spider-Man, have already become PlayStation classics, and I think we can see why. Since its first release in 2018, Spider-Man has had a remaster for the PS5 as well as a Miles Morales game that has amassed the franchise to sell over 33 million copies since 2018, as well as winning multiple Games Critic Awards in 2018. While Ghost of Tsushima has sold over 10 million copies since 2020 and has won the likes of the Game Awards Best Art Direction Award in 2020, as well as DICE Awards Game of the Year in 2021. PlayStation has continued to push industry standards in how we should care and treat video games. What's astonishing is I haven't even had the chance to even mention games that you guys probably hold dearly like the Horizon franchise, but those are games that I would like to talk about in a video as well one day. Now, with that being said, all I want to say is that as gamers, just play what you want to play and enjoy it. Video games are meant to be an escape, so ignore all the tribalistic opinions and be proud of whatever you want to play.